Welcome everyone to our second episode, right, of the Anglia International School Khor podcast, or also known as the Learning Curve podcast. I am your host, Justin Hamza Tyler, the Director of Admissions and Marketing here at NAISAK. That's what we call it as an acronym. And I have a special guest here. No pressure to her, but we had Jamie Hughes, our principal, on for the first episode, of course, right? It makes sense. But this is the first non-principal, non-SLT member. And it's a good reason why we have her on the show. I'll get into that a little bit later. But without further ado, Miss Iman Campbell, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you.
Alhamdulillah, everything is well?
Everything's good.
All right. So, first, before we get into the questions, I got some questions here. I want to get into your winter break.
Yep.
How was that?
That was really good.
Were you here?
I went back to London for the first time. I went back for the first time in winter since December 2019. So it was a shock to my system, the cold.
Did it snow?
It didn't snow. Alhamdulillah, when I was there, it didn't snow. But I did cry in the first 2 days because I was so cold. Me and the cold don't go together. Like
I'm trying to figure.
I get so cold, and it's painful to me. I was literally on Qatar Airways app ready to book my flight back, within the first week. Now,
you living there and from there, you would know it's cold, right? So you would know what you were getting into, correct?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I don't know.
I feel like I've forgotten because I've been in Qatar for like 6 years.
Right.
So I feel like I've got used to the warmth. And even the winters here to me are cold. So I was already cold before I went back. When I went back, they were like, "It's warmed up. It was cold a few days ago," and I was just not happy.
That's diabolical, man. It's warmed up. No, it's cold. It's definitely cold.
Gosh.
Okay, so you're acclimatized here. You've been here for so long. All right. Okay. We'll get into that. We'll get into that. You said London. Tell us more about your background. Where are you from? Nationality, ethnicity. Give us all the background of who you are.
I like how you divided nationality and ethnicity.
It's a difference. It's a difference, everyone.
When people ask me where are you from and I give them my nationality, and they're like, they look at me like, okay, add more to that answer. So, long story short, I was born in London, South London. Both my parents are British Jamaican reverts.
What?
So,
wow.
I'm British Jamaican, but I'm, alhamdulillah, born Muslim.
Alhamdulillah.
And that's the all in all, I guess. My nationality, ethnicity. So.
Okay. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Now, I'm going into this, everyone. I don't know her personally. So I'm actually discovering things as we go along as well, all right? So if I really seem like I'm surprised, I'm definitely surprised, right? So I don't know anything. That's interesting. That's great. So you were born in England.
Born in London, yep.
But ethnically Jamaican.
Yes. Okay. And when you say ethnically, Jamaica is one of the motto on the coat of arms is out of many, one people. So Jamaica is very culturally diverse in itself. Like I have Chinese ancestors, I have Scottish ancestry, I have if you take it all the way back, I have Syrian ancestry. Wow. So Jamaica is very, mixed up in itself. So people from Jamaica know that, and they don't expect Jamaicans to look one way. But when I tell someone that I am Jamaican, then there's follow-up questions of, you don't look like what we would typically think a Jamaican would look like. But to a Jamaican, this is nothing new.
I'm not gonna lie to you. In America, I was in college, or what you guys call university, right? Because I know college is different. But I never forget, there was this phenotype Asian-looking man, but he spoke patois.
Yep. That's very
and I was super confused. And I was like, are you a comedian? Are you from there? Your family from there? Because I couldn't really hack it. But he said, no, my family is from there. But Jamaica, if you've been there, it's very diverse. People think it's just dark-skinned black man or black woman, but it's different. And so I never understood it until I met him. And because I went to Jamaica at least 4 times in my life. But I was a little kid, so I really didn't see everything. So very interesting. You're a science teacher, but telling us history, I think.
I love history. I love history.
Okay, that's good. All right, cool. So that answers that. This is a question I love to ask as well. When you were growing up, what was a young Iman Campbell like? I'm sure she was different than the one who is now. So what were you like growing up?
Growing up, well, I will surprise you a bit more. I grew up most of up to, I think, year 5, I grew up in Saudi Arabia. So I was born in London, then when I was very small, around 1-2 years old, I don't even know, I can't remember.
Okay.
But my parents moved to Saudi Arabia. So I grew up there. That was like my first education. My first schooling was all in Arabic. So it was, you know, at the time, going to school, I feel ended up being very formative to my personality and how I was. Because unfortunately, back in the day, you know, a school full of full of Arabs, you know, and I was one of the few non-Arabs. I experienced a lot of bullying, and it was like a daily thing. So I feel like that has lent into my personality back then, especially being very introverted, and not only that, but being very defensive. So, you know, people even, and that unfortunately hasn't changed much to now, in the fact that when I'm walking around in my, you know, neutral state, my face might not be like the friendliest face to come across. But I feel like that when I think about it, I can track it all the way back there. But in terms of like at home and, you know, with friends, very talkative. You know, I'm very talkative, you know, when you get to know me. I love to read. I could read like a novel in a day, and I would literally hide under my bed sheets and read when it's meant to be lights out and sleeping. So things like that, I was, you know.
Do you think because of your upbringing and how you were a little bit defensive or introverted, that led you into digging into a book to create a fantasy or to
it's
live out
my imagination? Like to this day, I still love reading, but you know, something shifted when social media took a boom. So I was around, you know, mid to end of university. And I'm grateful for that, because I feel like it's affected my attention span, like myself, as pretty much an adult. So I can imagine like if that was something that existed back in the day, but back then we didn't even have like TV. We had a few Disney videos. You know, internet wasn't a thing. We had those computers that you had to turn on from here, and it would sound like an AC like going off. And you know, those really big things.
I remember those days.
So for me, like reading a book was the best thing ever. I would love getting a new book, and you know, the smell, the feel, like, it was amazing. I remember I lent a book to a friend of mine, and he brought it back in very bad condition. I nearly cried. Like, I was like, it's like, you've ruined my book. Like, what have you done? I was,
This wasn't the day of Amazon where you can order a new one, or, it meant a lot more.
It was,
Interesting. What's the name of that book?
It was Inkheart.
I
don't know if they made it into a film. And the film was terrible.
That happens a lot.
I was very disappointed with the film, and it was like a part of a big series, but thankfully they just stopped at film one.
Do you feel the same way for Harry Potter? Did that go well in the movie, or no?
Never read Harry Potter.
Wow.
I've never read Harry Potter.
I was presumptuous. My bad, everyone. Presumptuous.
No, it was a thing back then, but my mum, like, she just didn't let us read Harry Potter. She said the magic and everything. So
I totally understand.
So
I totally understand.
Read it. And to be honest, I don't feel like I've like missed out on anything, because you know, now that people my age who've read Harry Potter, they're still into Harry Potter. I find that very weird. I'm like, guys, it's been
how long ago?
Like, it's been a while. So
shout out to your mother. Shout out to her. I understand exactly what she means by that. Okay, fair enough. All right. And then as a result of going to school in Saudi, and obviously have Arabic infused in your upbringing, are you native in Arabic? Do you know a little bit of Arabic, or?
So back then, like everything, I only spoke English at home with family. So in school, it was Arabic and everything else. And right now, like for example, if the students were in school, I would understand what they're saying. Like it's completely fine. But my issue is that I've been out of practice speaking. So I feel very rusty, and on top of that, I'm very shy to speak it because I don't want to make mistakes. And that's like, for me, saying I don't want to make mistakes, I don't want to look silly, is really funny, because when it comes to my fitness side of things, I'm the opposite. But when it comes to me speaking Arabic, I'm just like, and kids can be ruthless. So if I try and speak Arabic and they just look at me like this, so I just keep it, you know, under wraps. If I really have to, like if I have to, you know, speak to a parent, if there's no translator available, if I have to go into a government building, and they start speaking to me in Arabic, I might respond in English, or I respond in Arabic. Like it just depends on the situation. But I realized I know a lot more Arabic than I do, because when I went to Spain and people were speaking Spanish around me, I had no clue what was going on. But like when I'm around, you know, in an Arab country and I hear Arabic all around me, it's as if I'm just listening to English.
Okay.
So I feel I know a lot more than I think I do.
Yeah, that tends to happen. Speaking of Spain, when I was in Spain, I know Spanish. I grew up with Spanish, and shout out to my sister. She speaks fluent Spanish, right? When I was in Spain, I had to navigate, and a lot of people in southern Spain do not speak English like that. So I knew a little bit more Spanish than I thought I knew, even though I'm rusty as well. I'm pretty sure it's the same experience with you when you have to speak Arabic. Exactly. It comes out, and you actually.
It comes out.
Yeah, that's
and
pretty cool.
Sometimes I catch myself. I'm like, wow. That was a good sentence. Like,
is that button? Remember that Staples commercial? That was easy. Like I do. And now it becomes easy. So that's good.
Yeah.
So when you were a student growing up, I guess the way I would say it is, how did you know, or did you know that you would be a teacher one day or an educator one day, or was that something that happened later on?
Okay, so I didn't know I was going to be a teacher because I think growing up I never had like a dream career, so to speak. And then when I started to go through schooling and do my subjects, I really had like a very big, deep love for history. Okay. Like history before science is my first love. History, I did GCSE history and I got 100% in all the exams. We had 3 papers. I was really proud of that.
That's a flex right there. Yeah. That's what's up. Okay.
I ended up doing history at AS level, so year 12. But, having parents from an ethnic background, STEM is the way.
Fair enough.
History, the humanities is not seen as something, that can open up, I don't know, career paths for you, which is, obviously not right. There is so many things that can happen from that. But especially being the oldest daughter, having parents who want the best for you in the end, at the end of the day, I basically was encouraged, very encouraged to take up
pushed along
to take up a STEM route. And I love biology because I love reading. Okay. So biology, as my students find out, is a lot of reading.
Right.
So I love that. And my mum is a science teacher.
Okay.
Yeah, so she's a science teacher. So I've grown up around it. Right. It's nothing new to me. And then when I ended up, in my 3rd year of university, and all my friends were choosing to do further studies, a lot of them were choosing masters, some of them were choosing to go on and go from my degree into medicine or dentistry. I realized I don't want to do more university. Like I want to start life, because at university you're in a very nice bubble. Yes. And I didn't want to stay in there, much longer. I was like, life needs to get started somehow. And I was drawn to doing a PGC. Yes. Because back in, I don't know if they still do it now, but they would pay you to do a PGC in subjects like biology, chemistry, physics, because the teachers are not there. Oh. So in the maths and the sciences, they would pay people to do the PGC.
Interesting, yeah.
So I thought, let me do that. Because teaching, I know, from my mum's experience and from her friends and everything, teaching opens up, possibilities of you going abroad. It's much easier. Like teaching is a job you can always have anywhere you go. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Yes. So I did my PGCE, and nearly 10 years later, I graduated PGCE 2017. So
be careful about telling your age out here.
It's coming.
Okay.
So while much longer than I thought I would still be teaching, I'm still teaching, and I'm happy about that.
All right. That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. And to shout out your university real quick, where did you go?
King's College London.
King's College London.
I heard some good things about it. King's College Hospital, so it's a nice full circle moment. Yeah. Okay.
All right, cool. So that's a good reference that you made about parents, especially Jamaican parents, immigrant parents, typically choosing between maybe 4 different careers. Maybe if you're a doctor, a pharmacist, finance, you engineer.
Exactly.
So that was you were alluding to, like that was like, okay, we need to go into these areas. And you being the oldest, I'm sure was more pressure on you to also be the example.
Exactly.
Okay, got you. So in university, once you did everything, you got your qualifications and everything started, what was that first journey like at your first school? And what were some maybe like a breakthrough moment that like, I belong in teaching, or this is what I actually came here to do?
Yeah. So in the PGC, they put you on placements. So the first placement I had was for a short stint just before the winter break. And that was in a school that was predominantly white.
Okay.
In like one of the whiter areas of London, because London is very culturally diverse. And this was in one of the very few parts that were not. So I think there was me and 2 other Muslim teachers.
Okay.
And both of them were male. So no teacher or student, I think, was visibly wearing the hijab. Yeah. So that was a very new experience for me, because growing up, the school I went to, loads of Muslim girls. I went to a girls' school, loads of Muslim girls. The sixth form I went to, also a girls' school, loads of Muslim girls. And then in university, you see them everywhere, isn't it?
Yeah.
So that was the first thing. And I had like one student come up to me, and he was like the whitest looking guy. He's like, "Miss, Assalamu alaikum, miss." And I was like, okay, He's like, "Miss, my cousin's Muslim, yeah? My cousin's Muslim." And so, and I didn't even know this kid, but it turned out he was one of the more difficult students in the school.
Okay.
But from there, we built like a rapport, and, I ended up having to teach him. And where he was, my mentor was like, watch out for this kid. He can be difficult, blah, blah. Because of that initial interaction we had, which was so unexpected for me, he was one of my favorite students, to be honest.
Wow.
And then my second placement was after the winter break, and that was at a school that I ended up doing my NQT at. So I stayed on in that school.
Yep.
So I was there for a longer placement, and what happened was they were like, are you thinking about where you're going to do NQT? I said, yeah, but no vacancies have come up in your school. And they were like, just apply. Like, apply.
Okay.
Like, don't write vacancies, just apply. So I was like, okay, I didn't get the hint. I was like, okay.
Right.
So I applied, and alhamdulillah, I got a job there. And it was really nice. It was really nice. That was a really big school. I can't even think of numbers right now, but how the hierarchy was, it was that there was 4 mini schools, each with their own head teacher, their own deputy head, and that was overseen by a principal. So it was a huge school. So coming to Qatar when it was everything's much smaller in comparison to that school was a big jump. But I think that school prepared me for teaching like a breadth of students, and it was very multicultural. And I had a good experience there. I had one class that when I realized that maybe teaching was for me, and specifically was when I realized that one of my strengths, I don't know if it's a good thing for me or a bad thing for me, because sometimes it ends up with me getting classes that I could do without. But my behavior management is something that I would say is one of my strengths.
Okay.
And I would say, and when people ask me how do I do it, I don't know. I wish I had like the secret handbook, but I feel like at the bottom of it is building those relationships with students. And I realized I was very good at that, despite being an introvert, despite being quite shy. I think when I'm in the classroom, you put on that act, so to speak.
Yes.
Like, not that I'm acting like I care about the students, but it's something you're just able to do that. And I remember one class was year 10 when I started, and we had like 6 sets, and so they were set 5 out of 6. So you can imagine like the difficult students in that class, and it wasn't many students, but they were difficult students.
I can imagine.
And I remember the first interaction I had with one of the boys was when he walked in and he tried to throw his water bottle in the bin. It missed and hit me, and back then I was very much closer in age to the students, so I was very hot-tempered as well. So I had to learn about just like, you are the teacher, you are not, so I was very upset at him doing that, and we had a big, literally our first interaction was a big altercation, like SLT, everything. And then throughout the year, slowly, good thing about boy students, I found that they don't hold a grudge as long as girl students.
Okay.
I find girl students, it's like once you do something they don't like, you are on a big journey to get back into their good books. You're on a huge journey. Whereas boys, one day you'll be, altercation, next day you're fine.
I agree with you on that one. I agree.
So this student, we ended up going throughout the year, and he came from a very troubled background. As you can imagine in London, there's different cases, and I'm not going into any details, but there's so many different cases that really just breaks your heart when you think about what they went through, and it makes it more clear as to why their behavior is. And he was a young black boy, and for me, being black myself, I found myself really gravitating towards my black students, because I feel they were very misunderstood, especially the boys, because lots of times I might be black, there are a few black teachers, but black teachers, especially black male teachers, very underrepresented in secondary schools in England. So I find myself in situations where with this student and other black boy students in the class, I would be very much advocating for them. You know, other teachers, they will be very quick to say, yeah, no, he did this, he did that, this is the... And I'm in the staff room sitting listening to all the stories, and I'm thinking, you're not trying to know him, like you're not trying to understand where he's coming from. You're just vilifying him before you even understand anything. So I realized, you know, that I needed to be in his corner, and we really built a relationship, me and the few other boys in that class as well. And by the end of it, when I had to break the news that I was leaving to Doha, because I left in December, so that was before they even finished the year 11 exams.
Yeah.
This literally made me cry because I can, you know, think back to our first interaction. As he was leaving my classroom, he was like, you know, sheepishly, he was like walking, he's like, Miss, I said, yes, what's up? He's like, I got this food. He pulled out from the back, like a, you know, the big bar of chocolate, like this big. And it's like the one that has £1 on it. And, you know, for a 15, 16-year-old, £1 is a lot of money to be spending on chocolate for your teacher. And then he was like, can I give you a hug? I was like,
oh, man.
Honestly, it really touched me because I know, first of all, how big it is for him to be spending £1 on that, knowing his background. And then, you know, for him to want to show that affection to me, considering where we started, you know, it just goes to show that he saw the effort I was putting into him. He saw the care that I had for him, because I would go to his rugby matches and support him. You know, and after school, I would do my very best for these students. And yeah, like, you know, something like that. I realized, you know what, teaching is for me. If I can build the relationships with students, if I can make that impact, it doesn't have to be, you know, on paper, you get in the A, you get in the A star. Just to show these students who are going through life outside of school that someone cares about them. You know, someone cares about them enough to try and get to know them. Someone cares about them enough to go and watch your rugby matches after school. When you can look on the sidelines, you can see a familiar face. You can see someone cheering you on.
That's real.
You know? So yeah, that's what basically.
I got two things to say about that. Number one, these are the stories that we want to hear. Because we get into teaching not for the money. We get into teaching not for the fame. You get into the teaching to make a difference in at least one child. If that multiplies, alhamdulillah. If it doesn't, alhamdulillah anyway, right? And that child that you're talking about, who now probably a young man, won't forget you, has probably never forgotten about you, you know, so you never know. My mother was a former teacher, and she had students reaching out through me after 30 years trying to get to talk to my mom. Hey, can you give me your mom's number? I want to thank her for everything. Because when Facebook, you know, blew up, she was around when Facebook was there, right, when she first taught. But as Facebook kind of grew up, and the people just found me to get to her. And that's 30 years. I'm sure that young man's going to find you at some point as well.
I hope so.
And then the second thing is a follow-up. I hear this sometimes with teachers in Qatar. I don't know which students are going to be similar to that student that you had, because everyone has what they need. They're expats or maybe locals who have good family, you know, good opportunities, things like that. Where do I go to help that student? Are those students even open to help? Because in London or in New York or other places, there's students who need education to get out of where they are. But sometimes I feel like there's a misnomer here that students don't need education to get out of where they are because they don't have to get out of a situation. What do you say to people who say those things as a teacher?
I would say, you know, they're not entirely wrong. They're not entirely wrong. There is some truth to that. But that is where your mindset has to shift. You know, like in England, it's very easy to say, you know, you need to do this, you need to work this hard so you can get the grades, and then you can, you know, your life will be better. You know, you can't use that line, you know, on a lot of our students in Qatar. But what I, you know, would say is that education, you know, in how it can benefit a lot of our students is the fact that it opens up for them opportunities. Because if we think about the fact that this country is becoming very globalized, whichever job they end up in, because they will end up in the workforce, they will need not only English skills, they will need critical thinking skills, they will need discipline, they will need, you know, all these things that we are embedding in school first and foremost. I might, you know, me telling you what the structures of the cell do is not going to be very beneficial for you, okay, if you are not going to go down the STEM route. But at the end of the day, you having your work organized, you writing in neat handwriting, you come into school on time, it's like all those little building blocks that encompass everything. That is what's going to then help you, you know, in the future, because you see that a lot where they might not want to do anything, but then they leave and they come back and they're like, you know what, the police academy is very hard. They make us do this, they make us do that. You know, we have to get up at this time, we have to do this at this time. I'm like, yeah, but this is what we have as well. You know, we have lessons at specific times. We have, you know, times where you need to go here, you need to go here. That's preparing you for that time where you will have to wake up for a certain time to go to work. You will have to, you know, show up in places at specific times. And you learn those personal skills from school. Okay, it's not, maybe you don't need to get the most amazing grades, okay, but also we do have students who go on and do amazing things in terms of, you know, go down the medicine and dentistry route. That's what I mean by amazing things. Amazing things is like, I'm still, you know, in that mindset. So, you know, it's just a two sides to it, but I see where they're coming from.
I do too. I do too as well. I just, something I've heard, and I always talk to different teachers about that. So, all right. This is interesting as well. Every teacher that I talk to has a different philosophy, a different approach to students. Whether it works or not works, not everyone has the same philosophy. So for you to deliver high quality, world-class education that you do in your science classes, what is your approach?
So I've thought about what I do. And I feel like at the core of everything, like in all my classes, and I feel like without this, you're not able to then build on anything. So the first thing that I make sure all my students do, and we, you know, do every lesson, is we have our set routines. I feel like without routines, everything else has no foundation. You know, I can't try and do an amazing lesson or do anything if my students don't know what to expect every time they come to my classroom.
I agree with that.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So when my students come to my classroom, they know Miss Campbell will be at the door. She'll be there, seeing them coming in. She'll see you at the end of the corridor, and if you're loitering or taking a bit long, I will call your name. You know, you will come to my classroom. I will give you...
I've seen her do it. I've seen her do it. So
I'll give you a short activity to get started with whilst I'm welcoming everyone else to the classroom. We will mark that activity. We'll self-assess that activity. You know what color pen to use. It's on my desk. Okay. The title and learning intentions will be on the board. You write that down. And it might sound tedious because sometimes even I'm like, oh, I didn't print this activity. It's fine. But I'm like, no, if I don't do it, then I'm going to have problems down the line because they'll think that my routines are flexible, and therefore how they can be in class is flexible. And that's not what I want, you know? But then after all of that, I feel like that creates an environment whereby I can, you know, really try and do the best I can for my students in terms of when it comes to teaching something, I try and teach it in a way that most engages them. And I have a lot more flexibility to do that in Key Stage 3 because, you know, when you get to Key Stage 4 and Key Stage 5, we're very exam driven. But I still try. So my philosophy kind of changes a little bit when I come to Key Stage 4 and 5. I'll let you know that in a second. But Key Stage 3, I try as much as possible to explain things to them in a creative way or model things in a creative way. Like most recently, actually, we're doing the circulatory system, stroke, gas exchange in the lungs and why it happens and whatnot. You
spoke German to me. I don't know what you're talking about. No, but go ahead.
So what we did, after I explained it and I could tell to my students, and these are year 8 students, I could tell, okay, they know a little bit, but it's just words at this point. So I was like, okay, I got pieces of blue paper, pieces of red paper. I said, I need a volunteer to be my lung. I need a volunteer to be the left side of my heart, right side of my heart. Someone or couple people to be the respiring cells. So I said, okay, at the lungs, what are we exchanging? They said oxygen, carbon dioxide. So we got that. We got the fundamentals. I said, okay, so we're going to show that exchange, blue card for the red card. I said, then where does the blood go once it has oxygen? They're telling me, to the cells. I said, how? It's not going to get there. There's not enough, what's it called? Power, let's say, to get it to the rest of the cell. What does it need to go first to give it that extra push to the heart? So I had my little blood molecules students walking around, going from the lungs after they did their gas exchange. They went to the heart, left side of the heart. They gave them a big push because the left side beats a lot harder than the right side. Gave them a big push to the rest of the body. Paused the model, told them, why do we need to have the left side of the heart muscle thicker than the right side? Because the body is further away compared to the lungs. So doing that, they really it embedded in their mind about how the circulatory system is working, essentially the heart, the left and right side, what's happening at the levels of the lungs in terms of gas exchange. And then when we get to the respiring cells, we're giving those cells the red card, we're giving them oxygen. Why? They can talk about respiration, energy and all of that things. And then they're taking carbon dioxide. Then I told them, okay, how will all of this change if this body, which was the classroom, starts to exercise? They themselves, the blood and the heart and the lungs and the cells started doing everything much faster. Then I could take that and then do my explanation, and we can write down like a 4-mark, 5-mark answer as to why heart rate and breathing rate has to change the way it does when you exercise. So I feel like at the core of everything, because we're very exam driven and it is the British curriculum, I need to make sure I'm very happy and confident and I know what the examiner wants to see. And my students, they know that's the phrase I always say. The examiner wants to see this. You will not get a mark for not saying this. This is not specific enough. But at the same time, I want them to have a holistic understanding of what's happening. I want them to have as much breadth as possible, given the time constraints. But I thought that, doing that would be a more useful activity for them than just giving them the exam question and saying, okay, answer that for me, without that background modeling, so they can always think back to that and they can imagine themselves when they were in that situation, what was happening. And they ended up writing very good answers off the back of that. So I was very happy. I'm
thinking to myself, that sounds like a really great example of experiential learning. Like I'm actually in the learning itself. So once students are in the learning, they're interacting, they're going to remember that because they were a part of a particular system and they see how everything connects. And shout out to Miss Iman Campbell, because parents, this is an example of what we do in secondary, right? So education is real. I've been into your classroom before. There's definitely order. There's definitely structure in these classrooms, for sure.
There has to be.
For sure. All right. We're going to skip ahead a little bit because I want to get into the nexus of why we're here, because obviously you're a teacher, a fantastic teacher, but also we're on the eve of Qatar National Sports Day. And so some people may know, some people may not know, but you are, I would say, a fitness influencer. TikTok, right? I don't know, maybe on other platforms.
I have an Instagram. It's not very big at all.
Okay. So talk about that a little bit, if you can get into that a little bit.
I like to consider myself as a, wannabe athlete, I would say.
Okay.
In terms, I think in February would be 4 years now, coming up to 4 years. I started my fitness journey, and that moved into more functional fitness side, and now that is slowly morphing against my wish, again not against my wish, into a CrossFit side of things. So I've done a few competitions, and I just really enjoy this style of training. And I started posting clips of my workouts and just that on my public Instagram. And first of all, students found it, which was funny. They would come to me the next day, Miss, I saw your Instagram, you're very strong, and I'm like, okay, thank you. I need to find you so I can block you.
Right, all right.
But then I got more comfortable with it because I feel like they just like to see a teacher outside of school doing something.
They do.
And they actually, you know, admire what I do, and they think it's, you know, quite interesting, quite cool. They have students coming to me, you know, telling me about their bench press PR that they did, the deadlift that they did. It was this heavy, you know, showing me that they've got a whoop and all these stuff.
Oh yeah, shout out to Whoop.
So it's a really nice, and a lot of the time it's students that I don't even teach, but you know, again, it's just building that rapport of students in the corridor and as we're walking around, and yeah, it's really nice to have that now. And I just like to share things on there because it keeps me motivated as well. Because sometimes when I'm feeling like, oh gosh, like I don't want to train today, or you know, I'm not feeling like the best athlete I am right now, I can have just a scroll through my page and I'm like, you know what, like 4 years ago you couldn't do this, you know, like 3 years ago you couldn't even imagine doing this movement or doing this competition and placing this highly in this competition. So you know, be proud of yourself, and then I get that motivation. So if I can do that for someone else, then that's great.
What's the intersection, if there is one, between teaching and fitness? Is there things that are both in parallel with one another that you can draw from, that you say both of them have that in common?
What they both have in common, for me, as like, you mean teaching, the teaching side, and fitness, is that both of them require me to be learning. Like I'm learning in both. You know, it's not in the classroom, it's not only the students who are learning. Like I'm learning every minute, I'm getting feedback, you know, whether it's, you know, visible cues, verbal cues, feedback from the students' work. Like I'm learning myself what my teaching is doing, like what impact it's having and what I need to change. And it's all about, and same with fitness, you're always learning about a new movement, you're learning the technique for that movement. And like I said, as I want to move into the more CrossFit side of things, there's a lot of technical weightlifting, there's a lot of technical gymnastics, and you know, I have to learn that in order to be able to do that. And I just have to be open to that. So in the classroom, like as a teacher, I have to be open to, okay, if I see that this isn't going very well, you know, I've planned an amazing lesson in my head and now I'm delivering it and the students are not doing what I envisioned. Like, why is it not working the way I planned it out in my head? I have to accept that and say, okay, I failed. I need to come back and I need to redo this in a different way. The same thing applies in my fitness life. When I do something and I think, okay, I've got this down, I can do this movement, I can do this competition, I can do whatever it is, and it doesn't go as I planned in my head, it is frustrating, but I have to take a step back and think, okay, I failed, but failure is because you need to learn from that. And without failure, there's no learning. So in both sides, like teaching and fitness, I experience failure. But that failure, you know, failure has a very negative connotation. But for me, failure is a good thing, because if you don't fail at something, first of all, it means you didn't try.
That's a fact.
And if you didn't try, that means you're happy where you are at the moment.
That's a fact.
And in neither of those situations do I want to be happy with where I am at the moment. Yes, I'm content with what's happening right now, but I would like to get onto the next level. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah,
that's how that's when my eyes perked up, because I feel like failure is growth. 100%, you know what I mean? It's not necessarily that this is where I am permanently. Yeah. You know, it's growth if you apply what you learn. So I like that. So just for time counting purposes, we have one major question I'm going to ask you before we get into our bonus questions. Right? These are the fast questions that we get to get to know her a little bit more. But this is the last major question that we have. We're almost done wrapping up, and I don't want to be. We had a good conversation so far, a really good conversation, alhamdulillah. So this is a good question for you. You can expand as much as you like on this, or limit yourself as much as you like on this one. So as a Muslim Hijabi, have you encountered any challenges or misconceptions about you being in the classroom, about you doing fitness, you know, and actually promoting that online? Because you said before, I remember you said something about England, you were the only one that was a female, only one that was Hijabi. And then you come into a place in Qatar where the fitness is actually promoted. But, you know, some families are different about fitness and other things like that. So have you ever encountered something that was, you know, a little bit jarring for you? And if you did, how did you overcome those things?
Yeah. I'll focus on the fitness side of things. Yeah, in the classroom in the UK, it's at the beginning when they first see you in the scarf, they, you know, I don't know if what kind of teacher they expect to come out from you.
Yeah.
But then very quickly, you know, we establish what kind of teacher I am. The kids are. I didn't really experience anything untoward or any misconceptions because I was wearing the scarf. So it was pretty fine.
Yeah.
And in Qatar, pretty much the same.
Yeah.
You know, if not even more. Like it's very common. But in the fitness side of things, I was very skeptical at first to post videos online because, you know, you see a lot of the time on social media, unfortunately, because of the way that it is, any, you know, visibly Muslim woman who posts on social media, someone's going to have something to say.
I was going to say that.
Yeah, someone's going to say, you know, you're not doing this properly, you should be doing this, you're not doing that. And it's just like, firstly, give them a break, you know what I mean? Like, calm down. But thankfully for me, because, you know, I don't have that big a following at all, and it's mostly people that I know. I do have some people that I don't know now starting to follow, and that's, you know, that's a nice thing. But what I did find is that more so in real life, and I've been very worried, like for example, if I'm going to a fitness competition, like my first one when I was wearing a scarf, even though it is in Qatar and, you know, people are used to seeing hijabis, I was worried, you know, what kind of, what am I putting across, you know, what are people going to think? Are they going to think I'm good enough to be here because I'm wearing a scarf?
Okay.
And that kind of went away as I got better in what I do, because I'm very confident now in my abilities. I'm like, actually, you know what? I might be the one who's most covered here, but I can, you know, do better than most people here. In most cases, alhamdulillah, you know. So that has given me the confidence to go out there with my scarf on, because I want to show people, yes, I might be wearing a scarf, yes, I might be covered, and my hands and my face is all that showing, but you know, and in this heat, but you know, thankfully I can show up and show out as much as the next person, and that really just filled me with confidence, so that's fine. But there has been a few instances that made me laugh, because I remember I was walking in Vendome one time after I did some training, so I was in my full, you know, training kit. I didn't even have a jacket to put over, and I was in the queue in the coffee shop, and there was this Qatari lady behind me, and I could tell she was eyeing me up, and I was really worried. I was just thinking, oh my God, what is she going to say? Like, you know, she's not wearing hijab properly, this and that. Like, I was very, like, my mind, as you said, as I told you, I'm very defensive, you know, when it comes to it. Like, so I was just thinking, oh great, what's going to happen? Like, this is, I don't want to have, you know, a confrontation. And then she asked me, she was like, and this is in Arabic, she asked me, she's like, what sport do you do? Are you an athlete? And I was just like, I was like, no. I'm like, not an athlete. I was like, no, I just work out. And she's like, okay, where do you work out? What do you do? I'm looking for a trainer, this and that. And the conversation completely went down a route that I was not expecting at all.
That's nice.
And it made me laugh, because I'm like, Iman, you were so ready to think the worst about the situation and so ready to be on the defensive. And then this woman's just here, like, admiring, because clearly, you know, you look a certain way. She wasn't even thinking, I was thinking about, okay, what am I wearing? My top is tight, is this and that. But she was asking, you know, what fitness thing do you do? Took another name of my gym, and she was, you know, really interested in that. And that was a very positive encounter. So I see that more than anything, to be honest with you. There have been instances where walking in a mall and another lady, like, covered, waving at me, and I'm just like, who is that? And then it turns out we used to train together, but when I used to go to ladies only classes at the first gym I used to go to, so I didn't recognize her with her scarf on and her niqab on. And she's like, yeah, I see what you're doing, keep doing what you're doing, you're so, like, inspiring, it's really nice to see. So, you know, really positive interactions a lot of the time. So I'm really grateful, and I think being in Qatar helps that, because, you know, when you go abroad, there might be less hijabis in that space, but I've been, you know, I've trained in gyms in the UK. Like, most recently in summer, I went to the nearest CrossFit gym to my parents' house. And at first, you know, I was thinking, if this happened like 2-3 years ago, because I used to drive past that gym, I wouldn't, for the life of me, think about going in, because I would be thinking, I'll be so self-conscious, like, do I fit in here? Are people going to stare? Are people going to look? Like, what are they going to do? But because of the confidence that doing my training has given me, I walked in there very confident, started speaking to the owners and the members. I don't speak to them very much. I told you I'm not that social, but I would just I'm aware that I'm in a new space, so I need to be extra friendly.
Right.
So that's like a little smile, but and I just went through my own workout, and then someone would ask me like, oh, what sport do you do? Where do you compete? I'm like, I'm just a teacher on holiday. Like I'm just a teacher on her summer holiday who is coming every day because this is what I do for fun.
Right.
So it's really nice, and it's a nice, and I know how much responsibility, quote unquote, I have, because I know that wearing this, automatically someone can tell you're a Muslim. So I need to, represent Muslim women as best as possible. Yeah. But also I'm showing the world, especially when I'm training in England, like here everyone knows Muslim women work out, it's not a surprise. But I'm showing, when I'm in that, for example, that CrossFit box in England, I'm showing those people there, that yes, Muslim women completely covered head to toe, will do box jump burpees as quickly as the next person, they will do that. Yeah. It's not something to be surprised at, and it's just, I feel I just have that motivation in me to just keep showing up and showing out for the Muslim women.
I absolutely love to hear that, because I do think that it's a good representation that you're not limited. You can do everything else that anyone else is doing, and you can have fun doing it. Exactly. But people do have so many opinions and remarks, but sometimes you're thinking the negative, but then it's positive inside them. Exactly. So no pun intended to your name, but you gotta have faith. That people
I gotta have faith.
But it's good. Alhamdulillah, that lady was very nice about everything, and keep going, keep going. I really do. I do like it. 5 bonus questions, everyone. So this is intended to be answers 1 minute or less. Okay. Right. I'll try. So it's more like quick, rapid thinking, quick response. And this will get the chance to get to know you a little bit more. Okay. All right? Question number 1. If you could spend a day with any historical figure, who would it be and what would you ask them?
Oh, man. Okay. Like I told you, I love history. Yes. But I would say the historical figure, like I could go down the Islamic route, but let me just stay on like...
It's your show. It's your world.
Oh, my gosh. I would spend the day with Malcolm X.
Ooh, that's mine.
I love Malcolm X. Ooh. I love Malcolm X.
That's heavy. I got to hear this. I'm all ears now. What you got to say? I got to hear that.
But no, what would I ask him? Yeah. I would ask him, I don't know. I just really feel like I want to ask him more about what his experience was like in Mecca with the first time he went. That's pretty,
That's one of my top 5 questions I would ask him.
That's pretty much it. So but there's loads of other questions, but
because that's my favorite person in the world, and I'm a revert as well. So part of the reason why is because of him. I would ask him what gave him the courage to continue going forward, even though you knew you were going to probably perish. Right? It's not obviously it's not a lot of hands, but he felt himself that he was going to perish because of his purpose. So I would ask him that, because not everyone would continue doing it.
That's a good question as well.
Question number 2. What's the most surprising lesson you've learned from an unexpected experience?
Surprising lesson.
From a situation that you did not expect. But you learned something from that profoundly.
So I'll relate it to fitness. Okay. This is the thing I can think of top of my head. I'm sure there's so many more things that has happened, but I can't think of them right now. But last January or February, I was doing a competition, and it was going really well. And then I was warming up to do one of the events, which was how many reps you can do with the back squat. Okay. And then I was just warming up. I was on like 75 kg, just warming up till, and went down, felt something pop, and that was the end of that competition.
Sounds ended
up in the back of an ambulance, completely in pain, like really just completely out of it. Right. In the hospital on morphine, which I found out is very strong. Like for the first time I had morphine.
Be careful.
But what I learned from all of that is, and it was a surprise to me, is being an expat is how much family I have in Doha. Like family as in friends
Yeah.
who become your family.
Yes, they do.
Because I had so much support around me, you know, because people thought it was more serious than it was. At the end of the day, it wasn't that serious. But in the moment,
Ambulance.
you know, it was, I thought I couldn't, I was worried I wouldn't be able to walk again. Like I felt it was like really, I was crying, like,
Okay.
but it wasn't that deep. But I saw, you know, from the response of the people around me and closest to me in Doha, I really felt that I had found family here.
Right.
And that was surprising to me because, you know, for a long time, being in Doha, you feel like you have transient people in your life because people are always moving away, people, you know, come and go. And it really made me realize, you know, you have people around you who really do care about you. And whether you realize that or not, now you do realize that. And now it's time to honor and cultivate those relationships a lot more. So that was really nice. Yeah.
That's a nice story. Sometimes you don't know until you get hurt.
Yeah.
Something happens where family comes from. It's the story. Number 3, if you had unlimited resources to start any project or initiative, what would that be?
Okay. Since we were talking about Jamaica,
Right.
I would, if I had unlimited resources, I would start a fitness, like functional fitness, CrossFit thing in Jamaica, where people can go have a week holiday, but at the same time, it's going to be in like a, you know, exercise every day in that kind of gym. I feel like just merging the two, because I feel like Jamaica is a very popular holiday destination.
Yeah, absolutely.
But turning it into a like fitness destination for some people might be something that's really interesting. And I would think, because I've you know just started thinking about what I've been, you know, contemplating about the future of life. That's like one of the dreams. But you know when you have dreams that you think they might not become a reality, but they're still dreams.
Yeah, of course.
That's a dream of mine. Like to, it would be really nice if I could, you know, have own my own villa or something in Jamaica, or my own like functional fitness space in Jamaica, and have people come spend the week and, you know, go through a training program and make friends and have fun and, you know, all of that. That would be really nice, because
start backwards and you'll get there for it. I mean, you never know. Everything around us is a dream. Somebody dreamt this, and somebody made it happen. Everything around this, right? So I don't know. You never know.
You never know.
Inshallah, you never know. I like the idea though.
Because it's really nice. Because Jamaica is very rich in culture. People, you know, it's also when they visit and they only go to like the resorts or anything like that. So, you know, having something where you tie visiting and experiencing the culture of Jamaica, which is something that one of my friends, she has a company that does that. Right. But then adding on to that, the functional fitness that I really enjoy, you know, maybe I can see myself even like coaching and doing things like that. That would be really interesting.
Why not?
That's a dream
we'll check it. We'll check it in 10 years.
Inshallah.
2 more questions. 2 more. What's a book or a movie that's had a significant impact on your life? Why does it resonate with you?
We were speaking about Malcolm X, so it has to be the autobiography of Malcolm X.
So the Denzel.
No, not the movie.
Not the movie. Okay, the book.
Because, you know, I'm a big reader, so I read his autobiography.
Yeah.
I watched the movie. It was okay. It wasn't like, it was okay. I liked it.
It's okay.
Yeah, it was
Spike Lee.
No, it was like, you know, when your imagination just doesn't. Yeah. But no, it was one of the better films than the films.
It was
one of my more favorite films. But I feel like I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, so maybe late in life, maybe early in life. I read it when I was 18.
Okay.
And at that time, you know, up until then, there was, like, alhamdulillah, I was born Muslim. So I never really had to find Islam, quote unquote, you know, because like my parents, they were introduced to Islam, they found Islam, they became Muslim. Myself, I was born Muslim. But you take that for granted, and you don't really then know how impactful Islam is until I read something like his autobiography, and I realized that actually, wow, like Islam is something that I should take like more, like not more seriously, you know, because alhamdulillah I've always taken it very seriously, but something that I should not take for granted.
Right.
And I should, you know, realize that there is so much beauty in that, you know. If you read the autobiography and you see the way it changed his like perception, all because of being a Muslim, like literally all because of being a Muslim. And I can't remember it word for word, but his closing lines in that book about something like, if he was, you know, able to bring any light to the malignant cancer or something, about all praises due to Allah and only the mistakes has been mine. And that really like resonated with me.
Yes.
You know, how someone who is so impactful and someone who in this day and age made such a difference in the world, but at the end of the day, he's minimizing himself to the extent, you know, because everything is down to the power of Islam, you know, it's not down to him as a person. And of course, there's so many things you can say about Islamic historical figures, but I feel someone like Malcolm X is more relatable because it's part and parcel of our current life, whereas we can't really envision ourselves living in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Like, it's not possible, but you can envision yourself living in that time of Malcolm X. You can envision yourself in his shoes, and you can envision the journey that Islam took him on. And that just was so impactful for me. And from then I was, you know, really, really into that.
Not an emotional person, but that book, not the movie, the book, definitely made me choke up and tear up. As a revert,
100%.
As a revert, because I'm sitting here like I could see some elements of me in him.
Exactly. And as someone who's not a revert, I could still find those parallels, and it's really powerful, honestly. And every time you read it, you see something else. You see something new.
And I think you born Muslims need to give yourself a little bit of grace, because sometimes I always hear that, well, born Muslims, we don't really, you know, appreciate Islam. I'm sure you do. But there's always a guilt that we have about something that we didn't do in comparison to someone else. But I hear a lot of that. And I'm sure everyone, you know, inshallah, everyone is following the deen. But it's like, give yourself a break, you know, because even as a revert, you know, people say, oh, you guys are so tapped into the, you know, we have our struggles as well. But alhamdulillah, just for feeling like I need to do more. Alhamdulillah for that, you know. So, all right, one more question, right? One more. What's your favorite thing about living in Qatar?
Living in Qatar has to be the safety. Coming from London, where as you're walking on the street, to look at the time on your phone, you have to do a quick scan of the perimeter.
I don't know if I have my phone out in London.
You have to just quickly look at your phone and then put it away. Honestly, to come here, and I literally, my car, I can stay unlocked. My apartment can stay unlocked. Like, I can leave my bag somewhere, go around the whole mall, come back, it's still there. I walked through a hotel lobby once and it made me laugh because there was a nice Chanel handbag just on a table. Wow. And people were walking back and forth past the lobby, like a very busy hotel. And when that woman eventually would come back, her bag will be there. No one's taking it.
Tell me you're in Qatar without telling me you're in Qatar. Is that video, right? Like, if there's somebody videoed that, absolutely.
Whereas in London especially, it's like, you know, your cars get broken into in the day, like in daylight.
While you're in it.
Whilst you're in it even, you know? So that's the main thing is, honestly, as soon as I land back in Qatar and I come off that plane, I feel like my whole body just relaxes. I'm just like, okay, now I don't need to be on guard, like, you know, watch out anyone, any shadows, it was, honestly, it's a big difference. I don't think I can go back to being that, you know.
Shout out to my wife. She's also from London. She's a runner. And she always says that she can run 2 a.m, no one will bother her.
Exactly.
4 a.m, 12 at night, doesn't matter, right?
Doesn't matter.
There is a sort of a bubble here that Qatar, you know, shout out to them, they have made people feel so secure no matter what walk of life they're from. So I totally resonate with that. So yeah, great. That's it. Oh, we're done. Right? Nah, but it was great, man. This is a great conversation. What a way to go to episode 2 and close it out. So signing off, Mr. Justin Hamza Tyler, Iman Campbell, as they say in Qatar, ma salama. Peace.